What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Silenox gaming video. Today we're covering patch 1.0.3, and this essentially is one of those updates where the notes don't look insane at first glance, but once you start to break things down, there's a lot of changes that will make the game a little less annoying, less clunky, and just a more convenient way to play. One thing of note, it won't become available to Xbox Epic Game Store players and Mac App Store players at this time. It will become available at a later date. Maybe by the time this video has updated, it will be available for you, so just be on the lookout for that. But essentially, this patch fixes a lot of the clunk, a lot of the, it makes it more convenient to play, essentially. Bug fixes, quest flows, traversal, fast travel, performance, all of these things and inventory have been fixed, and it shows. One thing that I will say is that it shows that Pearl of Bliss is clearly trying to respond to, the player friction points. Now, coming into this game, it was very hyped, right? A lot of YouTubers, major YouTubers, a lot of people in general, like myself, are looking forward to this game. How they saw it was, it's either going to be, one of the best games ever released, or it's going to be one of the worst, right? Now, I don't think it's either. Personally, I think it's right in the middle. I like sprawling RPGs. I like the ability to, pump hundreds of hours into a single RPG, collect a lot of stuff, and just make for an overall great experience, great combat. And I think the game has that. Some very beautiful views, and the graphics look phenomenal. However, there's a lot of jank. Now, I don't mind jank. I come from playing Skyrim. I love jank in certain senses. It's great, but certain times, especially in games where they don't have keys mapped. For example, I couldn't press M to open the map for some reason, and then a massive RPG, I have to go into a menu to be able to do that. That's so strange, but they fixed it, and spoiler alert, they have added things to the UI and to different keybinds now. So kind of getting into it just really quickly off the jump, they fixed some quests. Reunion at chapter 2, the cat would stop leading the way. They fixed that. Chapter 4, mysterious pot, by making the symbol stop briefly when it reaches the correct position while repairing the ancient generator. They fixed an issue on the Ternali request, where the quest would not be completed if a Becker shield had already been refined. And they've improved the notifications to appear when crime status prohibits quest from progressing. So now you're kind of more informed in this game, and they've reviewed some of these bugs. I'm sure there's other bugs with other quests I've yet to play yet that haven't been fixed, but I'm sure that they will fix that in the future. Moving into content, this is where kind of like the meats and potatoes of this patch really come into play. First, they added more Abyss Nexuses across the continent of Pywell to improve fast travel through teleportation. That means travel friction is going down. If you've been spending way too much time trying to get back to where you want to be, this directly improves the rhythm of the game. More fast travel points usually mean less downtime and better pacing, especially in a world where backtracking can start to wear on players. I also want to point out that I don't like overly a lot of fast travel points. I think a game that really got this well was The Witcher 3, The Witcher 4 rather. No, it's The Witcher 3. What, am I losing my mind or something like that? Witcher 4 is coming out soon. We'll be doing a game on that soon. But The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, sorry, they had a lot of fast travel points that they also didn't have a boatload as well. So I think having that sort of balance is hard to find in games. Hopefully that this fixes that. There's also more practical add-ons to the whole update. For example, private storage. You can now store items from your inventory, and the notes say that this storage is essentially located still at the Hernand Howling Hill camp. You can also essentially unlock that later when you can unlock your own Greymane camp, essentially. That's kind of huge, because inventory pressure is one of the easiest ways for an action RPG to become tedious. More storage means less forced inventory juggling, less hesitation over what to keep, and just overall less friction, so you don't have to keep micromanaging your bag all the time. They've also reduced the time required to acquire knowledge and changed skill observation, so it only needs to be done once before you can use the skill. These two changes together tell me that they're trying to remove repetition from progression systems instead of making players repeatedly prove they understand the system. The game is now getting out of the way once you've done it. This should make character progression feel faster and a lot less padded. That's something I'm kind of excited to explore as well. And a really important combat progression change is that Force Palm is now learned a little earlier in the game, which suggests that Pearl Abyss realizes players were getting a core feeling tool too late. If a move is important for how the game wants you to engage with enemies or traversal, unlocking it easier will help the overall game experience. They've also made gathering a little less annoying, so that's something I noticed too. It's that you kind of had to lock on to a rock and then swinging, and then keep doing that back and forth, and sometimes you'd miss. They fixed that. The numbers of hits required for logging trees, for example, have been reduced, and logging now uses basic swings without requiring you to do that stupid aim first, which means the system is faster, it's more intuitive. It sounds simple, but when you have to repeat an action like that over and over again, it becomes more like actual work, so I'm glad that they've changed that. Additionally as well, the arm wrestling minigame, we had to do that originally in the one of the first quests that we got. Essentially, it's also a lot easier now when you're pinned by an opponent in Mount, for example. That fits a broader team in this patch. They're toning down the movements where players were probably feeling like difficulty came from an awkward execution or poor readability rather than skill itself. One of the smartest readability changes here is to knowledge-related items. Items that can provide knowledge now have better visibility with icons and tooltips that show the total number of knowledge required. On top of that, ore veins and collectibles now get discovered automatically when you're nearby, with this patch listing proximity ranges of 8 meters for regular ores and 2 meters for tools like bonfires, special cooking tools, and grindstones. That means less pixel hunting, essentially, and more organic discovery. I found that pretty annoying too when I was trying to look for cooking stations, for example, and I couldn't really see one around. I had to keep looking around and oh, finally there's one, right? So now they're trying to show you that something like that's around you. This patch essentially also improves several Abyss interactions, so the Skybridge alignment devices can now trigger immediately when placed correctly. They're easier to use, and the circuit board attached to the Axiom Force now shows its line more clearly when being moved. These are all clarity changes, and they don't want to obviously reinvent the mechanic, but they're making it a bit easier for things like puzzles, for example. Bow and environmental interaction got some attention too. They improved the camera movement with aiming at a brazier, for example, adjusted the range for lighting arrows. So one thing I noticed is we did one mission where you had to shoot the vines with the fire arrow. I got close to it and I started burning myself as opposed to actually getting the arrow lodged. And that was because, I was way too close, obviously. And it's at the Lion Crest Watchtower is where we had to do it, right? I couldn't get the arrow. I had to go in several times, and eventually it got lit, right? So now that they've made that a bit more less challenging, it should help with the overall gist of the game. Trading got a nice upgrade as well with the trading post UI. It now displays the inventory of Damien, Unka, and Cliff's horses, which means less guesswork and managing goods and transport. If you're interacting with those systems regularly, that's a direct usability boost. Enemy strongholds also got a deeper mechanics. Destroying facilities now actually have actual gameplay effects. Destroying the infirmary stops wounded enemies from returning. Storage facilities reduce enemies' max health by 10%. And barracks facilities reduce enemies' attacks by 5. This is a big one because it adds clear tactical payoff to interacting with the stronghold systems. You're not just breaking objects for the spectacle anymore, you're weakening the enemy infrastructure in meaningful and visible ways. They've also improved the visual for certain puzzles, increased the health restored by ingredients and food items, and added new food to the Hernan Tavern. That means healing is essentially more generous, and food is becoming more relevant as a part of your sustain loop. The Lantern got a buff with increased clue detection range. I found visually it was kind of buggy at times, right? So now Nature's Grasp uses less stamina. Pets were fixed so they don't fail to loot items in certain conditions. Some items in the Witch's Shop now reset daily. All of these add up to make less stubborn game loops overall. And finally, in content, they fixed a bug in the Ethereal Pathway Abyss. or players couldn't observe force palm if they didn't step on a bis nexus, have fixed an issue where the stamina wasn't being consumed after a certain quest cutscene. One of these protects progressions, the other fixes resource rules and inconsistencies. So now getting into the controls, I really like this. I'm not gonna lie, right? I'm glad that they've improved the overall response speed with, the UI. There's the responsive for jump inputs, for example. There was a point in time, like I was on computer and I was pressing spacebar, and this is why I recommend everybody to try this game. If they're on PC, play it with a controller. It's just a way better experience with the interactions and the UI overall. But it wouldn't work at times, right? So now they've made it a lot easier. Keyboard and mouse got even more targeted changes. So if I'm on a controller, I have my keyboard in front of me too. It's something easier for me to juggle. I can press I for inventory now, K for skills, J for journal, and M for map, which is just phenomenal. I hated having to go into that scroll wheel UI and going into the drop down menu UI. It's going back and forth to pick those things. It's quite annoying. So now, they fixed the bottom right key guide not updating properly when using guard or aim. And they added default mouse side buttons mappings for things like guard and aim and evade as well. I know they were on different mappings as well on your keyboard, and it just didn't make sense. Like, it would be on control, but then you'd have to move your hand like this to hit the buttons, and it's like, what am I doing right now? I don't want to be doing this. So they finally made it a bit more intuitive for folks. Going into boss fights and combat, they reduced the health of and attack of specific enemies and bosses. I don't know how I necessarily feel about reducing HP on bosses. I think that they need to have some difficulty modifiers in difficulty modes. I'm a person that likes extreme, so I played Kingdom Come Deliverance on the hardest difficulty. I beat the game. I absolutely love doing things like that and making a nightmare out of the game for myself. Albeit we live in a society nowadays where it's, you gotta click something and it has to be like the fastest and the easiest thing to do, and puzzles can't be hard, and I just don't like that personally, but it is what it is, right? They've reduced stamina consumption for blocking attacks. Again, I wish that they have like a hardcore mode for people like myself. I like that the stamina essentially goes down really fast, right? Especially when I'm climbing things, it makes for okay, you need to start prioritizing your health and your stamina bonuses in the skills more than the overall combat techniques and these cool mechanics, right? So I really hope that in the future that they add in a hardcore mode for players like myself that like a challenge. The ambush encounters that lead to the Reed Devil boss have had their difficulty lowered as well. Kirsch the Slayer had certain attacks patterns adjusted. It's probably to make it a little easier for players as well. I don't know that I necessarily like these things. I would like the fights to be way harder, like I've said, right? So they're just a whole bunch of stuff. Getting into NPC and the NPC dialogue. They fixed an issue where some English audio lines weren't playing. I noticed certain dialogue cutscenes as well where their mouths were moving, and essentially, the audio would come out, but the lips wouldn't move, and they'd move essentially a little later. Hopefully they fix that as well, although I don't see anything specifically on that right here, but maybe that helps with that as well. I'm not sure. They reduced the price of restorative items sold at Carl the Howling Hills camp from 10 silver to 1 silver. Again, I don't know if I necessarily like the fact that they're lowering and they're making the game a bit easier for individuals. I don't know if that's going to help them or not in the long run. However, whatever they'll come and they'll eventually release a hardcore mode for individuals like myself. Animal behavior has also been improved to look more natural near the player. Certain NPCs placements and behavior bugs were fixed. They fixed an issue where NPCs would catch each other cheating during the minigame duo. Some of this is immersion, some of it is bug cleanup, and some of it's just removing a bit of the weirdness and making the world be a bit more believable, which is, great at some points in time. UI fixes and improvements, right? They have food items essentially now automatically register to a quick slot upon first acquisition. I noticed that I'd have to go into the scroll wheel and click on a food item that I wanted to then use to heal up. And while I was like spamming the heal button, it wouldn't be working. In the middle of combat, I'd have to do that. So I'm glad that they've added that. They also improved the display position for the homing pigeon letter UI. I noticed one time when the pigeon would come to land on me, I couldn't even like click on the actual pigeon itself. It would just stay there. It was like on my shoulder. I'm like, are you gonna shit on me or something? Please don't. But it's now fixed. So hopefully I can see that in game as well, because I'm sure we're gonna have more times where the pigeon comes and land on us. Going down into the graphics and settings, on PlayStation 5 and Xbox, they added 120 hertz mode toggle in settings, which is awesome if you're using a Pro. For PS5, essentially, this is great for you. Essentially, you know, your displays support it. They have better responsiveness with it. You know, it gives you better control over, you know, the graphic visually. I'm not personally a console gamer. I do have consoles myself, but I mostly play everything on PC. But I would highly suggest, you know, if you have a PC, use it on the PC, buy it on the PC. It's phenomenal on the PC. And I don't really run into humongous bugs. I think a lot of these bug fixes might be for the actual consoles itself, because I haven't ran into any major gameplay bugs, just, you know, the visual jank and certain jank that, you know, I've come to appreciate over the years playing games like this. They've also fixed settings not saving properly after using the default option, fixed resolution and upscaling settings not sticking after restarting the game, and they fixed invisible character equipment and cats on minimum settings. They fixed abnormal screen quality when using FSR ray regeneration and DLSS ray reconstruction, and they fixed incorrect monitor size detection with certain resolutions. This is a substantial batch of technical cleanup. It's essentially aimed at preserving your chosen setup and preventing visual weirdness, and I highly appreciate it, because I do not like it when I'm playing a janky game and it has janky graphics. I would prefer the jank just to stick with the NPCs. Mac-specific fixes are here too. The game no longer incorrectly defaults to cinematic graphics on certain MacBook models, and there's a fixed occasional crashing under specific graphic settings. That's important because bad default presets can wreck performance right out of the gate for the platform. Beyond that, they fixed situations where the abyss remained visible while on the ground, improved visual effects during specific NPC animations, improved the waterfall appearance in the abyss tutorial, and fixed wagon collision animations. They fixed a whole bunch of different issues. All of these are polished now, and they matter because they remove moments where presentation looks broken or unfinished. Additionally as well, they've added in some performance, stability, and gameplay. Essentially on PlayStation 5, they fixed a crash that would happen when opening the map, and they fixed the PC issue where the game wouldn't launch because of dedicated graphics cards weren't being recognized in setups, both using integrated and dedicated GPUs. There's another fix for graphics cards not being correctly recognized on both on a specific build on Windows 10. These are big because they affect essentially whether people can even run the game in the first place, so I'm glad that they've cleaned this up. And more broadly, Pearl Abyss says they're fixing and currently fixed several stability performance optimization crash issues across PC. Now, I haven't ran into any crashes myself. However, I do have quite a high-powered PC, and if you're not running it on a super high-powered PC, I know the minimum requirements for this game is quite low, actually. This should be better for you overall. Localization got a straightforward but important update. They fixed various localization errors, improved localization quality across languages. If you're not playing this in English, for example, this definitely helps you. And lastly, going into the other fixes, it's a little bit more useful on these fixes as well. They've fixed delayed death and loading sequences. I noticed that with some of my deaths, it took a really long time at sometimes, so that now this is fixed, which should essentially make failure and recovery translations feel a little less sluggish. They improved horse behavior, so your horse approaches you better after being called. Mine would just stay in a corner, and sometimes when I'm going forward, it just turns around in circles. So hopefully that's fixed as well. They fixed DualSense vibration not working in certain Windows environments. Now, I haven't noticed any vibrations whatsoever when I'm using my controller, so hopefully now I will. And even in the leftovers category, a lot of this patch is about making the game feel more consistent and hardy, right? So I do appreciate these sorts of changes that they've made, and hopefully that there's more along the way. I don't think it's just a couple of fixes. I think there's a lot of fixes in this, and hopefully with the next patch that they have coming out, it'll make the game even better for everyone as well. There's a lot easier things to control now. It's less punishing in certain spots. I don't know if I necessarily like that. I would prefer if there was just like, I love it when games have difficulty modifiers, and I personally just want to be punished for every little mistake. But I guess for the the normie and the casuals, it's a little bit better for you guys too. It's less tedious in progression and gathering. It's more forgiving with healing and item management. I like the item management changes specifically, and more stable technically across multiple platforms. So the big winners here are really the control responsiveness, reduced system friction, better combat readability, in my opinion, the inventory as well, more convenient travel as well for individuals, and a lot of smaller changes that should make the whole game feel a lot more polished. So if you've been playing already and this kind of patch you feel in the moment is like a good experience, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave it down into the comments and let me know what you think of the recent changes here. Also, if you found this video informative and you like this sort of content, this is my first real patch review for any game really. I launched this channel not too long ago, and we've been covering Crimson Desert since launch day. Leave your comments down below and see how I can improve. If you like this content, leave a thumbs up. If you didn't, leave a thumbs down to let me know I should probably move on in my life. But regardless of it, it's been Silenox. Thank you all for tuning in, and I appreciate it and hope to see you again soon.